Ken, we went back to see how this was being written about from a leadership perspective at the time. And back in 1944, just a month or so after this invasion, in Foreign Affairs, they wrote about the differences among the European and American leaders at the time. And they say that it has repeatedly been pointed out France was far less fortunate than Great Britain or the United States in her political leadership. The men who were patriots first and politicians second were rare, almost non-existent, again in France. The salvation of Great Britain and the United States has been that at critical moments in their history, a benign political providence has provided leaders who were not only intelligent, but courageous. Courageous. How important is that kind of courage on the world stage today?
It's hugely important. We see almost in a daily, hourly fashion the way in which partisanship and the idea of my way or the highway rules most of our discussions. And we applaud now as a rare event when people set aside the label R or D and do something together, when this is entirely what happened here. Franklin Roosevelt went to the industrialists who were angry at him because he had promoted all these social classes that were lifting people out of the Depression. And he said, I need you to make 50,000 planes. And they said, we can't do more than 2,000. He said, I need 50,000. He got 50,000 planes that year. And so there was a sense of cooperation, a sense of in it together. And so freedom, Casey, at the end of the day, that's what you're talking about, is that freedom is not just what I want, it's what we need. And sometimes they're in conflict with one another. That Iowa or Nebraska farm boy does not need to be at Omaha Beach that morning 80 years ago. But that's what we needed. And that kid was able to do that. And so many lost their lives. To see that sea of crosses is to understand the essence. I'm working right now on a history of the American Revolution where all of these things first began to coalesce, of the idea that we weren't just separate, but we could be one thing. And that's, if there's ever a sterling example of one thing, something we need desperately today, not just in the United States, but in the world, is the forces of democracy to come up and say, this is how you do it. Authoritarians always get the first jump. And then it takes a little bit longer for the unwieldy democratic processes to work. But when they work, there is not a force in the world that can resist them. That is the lesson of D-Day. And that is the lesson for us to take back to our own lives and our own actions, and to begin to realize there are things bigger than my political beliefs. There are things bigger than, what I want. There are things that we need. And right now we need to celebrate democracy and the overthrow of authoritarian rule.